Good afternoon, everyone. I'm June Rawl, the Executive Director for IPDAY, and I'm thrilled that you are joining us today for IPDAY's Webinar Wednesday, Navigating the New Horizon, an interactive overview of CASAS updates. Today in our webinar, we are going to give you the latest and greatest updates as we know it from CASAS. I want to introduce you to our facilitator today, Dr. Daisy Shaw from Palm Beach County Public Schools. She is the operations specialist there, and we are happy to have her facilitating our webinar today. Before we get started, I do want to review some housekeeping reminders. You are muted. All your microphones are muted. You are in listen-only mode, but I do want you to present your questions in the Q&A option on your screen. We will be monitoring those questions throughout the presentation, and I want you to be interactive throughout the presentation. Our presentation, like all IPDAY presentations, are recorded and they are archived on the IPDAY website and available within 48 hours. So I'm going to turn it over now to you, Dr. Daisy Shaw, and we'll get started.
Thank you for that introduction, June. Good afternoon, everyone from sunny South Florida. Yes, I work in Palm Beach County as an operations specialist for the Department of Adult and Community Ed, and I am also one of the many state-certified CASAS trainers in the state of Florida. And I am so glad you could join me today for some CASAS updates. Thank you for being here. And with me today is Carla, who is a National Programs and Technology Specialist for CASAS. She will officially introduce herself a little later in the presentation. Her and I will be monitoring the chat box, so if at any time, if in the next hour, if you have any questions, feel free to utilize the chat box and we will do our best to address your questions. And if you have any agency specific questions about the transition timeline, you may want to contact our amazing colleagues at FDOE for guidance. And for specific questions about CASAS, you may reach out to Carla after the webinar so she can assist you on a more personal level. All right, so now here is your first opportunity to use that chat box if you haven't already done so. Please let me know what CASAS stands for. What do you think CASAS stands for? Right, I'm seeing some answers in the chat box, and a lot of you are saying B. Okay. Now, if you said B, you are absolutely right. The answer is Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment Systems. Okay. And now I am going to go ahead and move on to the next slide real quick. For any newbies in this webinar today, here is a quick background on CASAS, right? So CASAS was created in 1980 by educators for adult learning. It is now used across over 43 states and 3 territories to evaluate reading, writing, and math numeracy skills. As a nonprofit, it focuses on enhancing adult education and workforce development. And here are our agenda items for today. So we will start with where we are now as far as CASAS is concerned. Next, I'll explain the changes happening and why and how these changes are beneficial. After that, we'll look into the future from our timeline and test content to enhance reports and beyond. And we'll wrap up today's session with a look at some useful resources that you can find on CASAS.org. Okay, so let's begin with present. All right, so get your typing fingers ready again. Here's another question for you. All right, which CASAS assessment series are you currently using to pre and post test your ESOL students? I'm seeing a lot of letter A's in the chat box. It's good. All right, some of you are saying we're using A, but we're going to be transitioning to B. That's good to see. All right, so it looks like majority of you, like here in Palm Beach County, you are currently utilizing the CASAS Life and Work series to pre and post test your ESOL students. Okay. Now, just so you're aware, the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, also known as OCTE, has extended the sunset date for CASA's Life and Work from June 30th of 2024 to June 30th of 2025. This extension was officially communicated through a notice in the Federal Register on March 18th, which was like last week. So this might be brand new information for some of you. Okay. With the extended sunset date, agencies have the option to continue utilizing the life and work reading and listening assessment, or beginning in the 2024 summer term, whenever that may be, as agencies have different start dates for their summer terms, you can begin implementing the CASA STEPS assessment series for pre-testing and ESOL course placement and reporting purposes. Okay, so whether you're going to continue using life and work for another term or so, or you're transitioning to STEPS in the summer, just know that the CASAS team is ready to support you. Now, if you are using CASA's Life and Work reading series right now, you know this is what the levels look like. These are the form numbers and the test items and the timing. And on the next slide, I've got the same information for the CASA's Life and Work listening test series that we're currently utilizing. We've got the CASA's test levels here, the form numbers, number of test items on the listening test, and then the timing as well in minutes. All right, here's another question for you. If you are a CASAS agency, what assessment series are you currently utilizing for your ABE and your ASE programs? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of C's in the chat box. All right. If you're using tape, that's totally fine. But if you are a CASAS agencies, looks like majority of you are using the CASAS goals. All right, because several CASAS agencies across the state are using the CASAS Goals series to assess their ABE ASC students. If your agency uses the CASAS goals, it's important to remember that CASAS reading goals has NRS approval until March of next year, so we're good there. However, the math goals is set to be discontinued by the end of June 2024. Yes, math goals will expire on June 30th, 2024. So CASA's math goals assessment remains on schedule to expire on June 30th, 2024. It is essential to post-test students by this deadline so you can report learning gains. Here is a quick table displaying the reading goals levels, form, number of test items, and test timing. Again, these are good until March of 2025. Here is a quick table displaying the math goals levels, forms, numbers of test items, and test timing. Again, this is set to sunset on June 30th of this year. And here's a quick summary of that. The only assessment planned to be discontinued in June of this year is CASAS math goals. All right. Now let's shift our focus to discussing some of these changes in detail. But before I do that, I'm curious to know what you think of when you hear the word change. Please share your thoughts in the chat box. What comes to mind when you see or hear the word change? Something new? Excitement. Yes, new. Change is a friend. Absolutely. Hopefully improvement. Yes. Those are all great answers. Adult education. Yes. Training will be needed. Absolutely. All right. Thank you all for participating. Those were all excellent answers. All right. Now I'm going to give you a few seconds to read this quote on the screen, and then please let me know with a quick yay or nay if you agree or disagree with it. I see a lot of yeses and thumbs ups in the chat box, which is good. Yay, yes. Change is both positive and essential, right? It brings new opportunities, fosters growth, and can lead to improvements in both personal and professional lives. Embracing change is key to adapting and thriving in an ever evolving world. And certainly in adult ed, change is constant, right? So now let's take a look at what it is that is changing. What is changing? Okay, so please note that the CASAS Life and Work Assessment Series was originally set to end on June 30th this year. However, OCTAE has extended this deadline to June 30th of 2025. Despite this extension, agencies that choose to stop using the Life and Work series can do so this summer. Okay, if you decide to stop using Life and Work beginning in the summer, you are now expected to adopt the new STEPS assessment for both pre-testing and post-testing your ESOL students. And for those of you that are wondering, what does STEPS stand for? STEPS stands for Student Test of English Progress and Success. Again, that is Student Test of English Progress and Success. All right. The CASAS Reading and Listening Step Series has been approved by OCTAE for NRS reporting through July 2030. The CASAS Reading and Listening Steps is designed in line with the ELP standards. ELP stands for English Language Proficiency Standards for adult education and offers 5 test levels, which I'm going to be going over a little later with you today. And this structure is aimed at enhancing accuracy and thereby improving student outcomes. All right, so here we go. Reading steps will be organized into 5 test levels labeled A to E, covering all 6 NRS levels comprehensively. A key update is the set of standards that reading steps adheres to. Instead of following the CASAS reading standards directly, it will now align with the English Language Proficiency Standards for adult education. These national standards for ESL are connected to the NRS levels, which we are required by OCTAE to align with. This is similar to how our current reading and math goals series report based on the college and career readiness standards. Consequently, the STEPS test reports will be updated to reflect information relevant to the English Language Proficiency Standards. And similar to reading steps, the listening steps series includes 5 test levels as well from A to E, spanning the entire 6 NRS levels. It aligns with the English language proficiency standards for adult education as well. And test reports for listening steps, just like reading steps, will offer insight into student performance according to the ELPS, okay, the English language proficiency standards. Here you are looking at test levels and formats and forms for the reading and listening steps assessment. This series offers 2 corresponding sets of pre and post tests across 5 test levels. These levels offer essential placement options to ensure precise diagnostic data for directing English language instruction. And now on this slide, you're looking at the number of test items and test time in minutes. Students are permitted the allocated time to complete the test, though many will likely finish sooner. In the STEPS listening assessment, questions in level A through D repeat the test question once. However, level E tests do not repeat questions, potentially shortening the testing duration if needed to complete level E tests. All right. And here are the scale score ranges for reading and listening steps in correlation with NRS levels for ESL. Agencies report students' learning gains when students move from one NRS EFL level to another. Now let's talk about Goals 2 a little bit. The CASAS Math Goals 2 series has been approved by OCTE for NRS reporting through July 2030. Math Goals 2 measures academic and higher order math skills, and this series is a balance of life skills and workplace related math with content of practical use to adults. Math Goals 2 offers tests across 5 levels as well, allowing for a comprehensive coverage of the entire spectrum of ability levels outlined in the CCR standards for adult education and the NRS educational functioning level descriptors for adult basic education mathematics standards. Students are permitted to utilize a calculator during all Math Goals 2 tests. They can utilize either the calculator integrated into CASAS eTests online, or agencies, you can provide them with a basic or a scientific calculator. This right here is for our paper-based testers. The reading steps, as you're aware, comprise 5 levels. Additionally, for our ESL students, CASAS offers a test booklet exclusively for level A, along with CDs containing listening items for all levels A through E. For our ABE and ASC students, CASAS provides Math Goals paper test booklets for all 5 levels A through E. Again, institutions administering paper-based Math Goals 2 tests should provide students with a basic or a scientific calculator. Students should not be using their own personal calculators or their cell phones as calculators, okay? So school sites and agencies, you can provide them with a basic calculator or a scientific calculator. Do not let the students bring their own, or do not let them use their cell phones. Okay. Here is a table displaying the Math Goals 2 levels, forms, test items, and test time in minutes. As you can see, this series provides 2 parallel forms of pre and post tests at each of 5 test levels. These levels provide necessary placement opportunities to ensure the most accurate diagnostic information to guide mathematics instruction. This table here displays the scale score ranges for Math Goals 2 in correlation with NRS Mathematics EFLs. All right, and now let's switch gears a little bit and focus on the why. Okay. So here's some more information about the STEPS and Math Goals 2 series. CASAS has refined the structure of these series to make them more streamlined, and the updates I'm about to share apply to all of them. Each series meets national standards with the STEPS assessment designed for ESOL learners aligned with English language proficiency standards, and Math Goals 2 for ABE and ASE learners aligning with the college and career readiness standards. So CASAS has gone ahead and refreshed the test content to make it culturally relevant and engaging, focusing on modern life scenarios that we believe you'll appreciate. And these series are accessible both online via e-test online and in traditional paper pencil format, and can even be administered remotely. The results from these assessments are available instantly through e-test online. And the introduction of a new 5-level structure means fewer retests and improved outcomes for students. With 5 distinct levels, the series allows for a more nuanced assessment of each NRS level, enhancing our understanding of student skills across a broad spectrum. Additionally, we're looking forward to introducing you to some new reports developed for these series a little later in the presentation. Here we have a graphic showing the test levels for each series, right? So every test level comprehensively includes 2 NRS levels in a way that overlaps. So for example, level A test covers NRS levels 1 and 2. Level B covers levels 2 and 3. And this pattern continues upwards. Thanks to the efficient overlapping design, students can always achieve measurable skill gains, no matter their starting point on the pretest. This setup also minimizes the chances of students receiving scores that are too low or conservative, so thereby reducing the need for retesting. So we are not going to see as many out of range scale scores, so we're not going to have to retest students often. Okay. Moreover, because each test form is focused on just 2 NRS levels, it allows for more detailed content on each level, leading to enhanced reporting accuracy. And yes, you read that correctly. Not everything is changing. Not all aspects are undergoing modification, okay? So here's a list of things that I'm going to go over that are not changing, right? So let's look at that. The foundation remains unchanged. The foundational competencies of CASAS remain integral to the integrated assessment and curriculum management system, despite the introduction of new series. Access to resources. All right, so test blueprints, sample test items, linked to competencies, and the English language proficiency standards that were published in 2016, they remain accessible and unchanged. These standards continue to be a core part of the foundation. And then professional development and curriculum alignment. Many states and agencies continue building professional development opportunities around these standards, and publishers like Burlington English, Oxford University Press, and New Readers Press have developed their curriculum that align with these standards, and this alignment is not changing, all right? Here's a big one, training requirements. There are no new training requirements being introduced. Okay, existing training options are being updated to include the new series, but the requirement for training remains the same. WTUs, the work time units, WTUs or training and education units, TEUs, do not expire and can be used with all assessments, maintaining the perpetual validity. Post-testing guidelines. The guidelines for administering post-tests after a specific number of instruction hours and ensuring pre and post-tests are from the same series, that remains unchanged. Test administration procedures. So procedures for administering the test security guidelines, and the provisions of pre-configured testing sessions online remain consistent. All right. And while there are new booklets for STEPS series, the option to use a locator for paper testers, which can reduce pre-testing time, that is being maintained. So again, not everything is changing. Now let's discuss the future a bit. Okay. So, but before we do that, I'm going to have you tell me if the statement that you see on the screen is true or false. Students must pre and post test with the same test series. I'm seeing a lot of A's and a lot of T's. True. All right. So everyone that said A or true, you are absolutely right. This statement is true. Students must pre and post test with the same test series. And this is why it is important that you post test your students who have the appropriate numbers, a number of instructional hours using the math goals before June 30th. So you can go ahead and report those learning gains. Here's another true or false statement for you. Post-testing should occur after 70 to 100 hours of instruction and not before completing a minimum of 40 hours. Is that true or false? All right, I'm seeing a lot of letter A's, which is good, and a lot of letter T's. That's fine too, because that stands for true. And this statement is true. Please ensure your students undergo post-testing after receiving 70 to 100 hours of instruction, but not before they have completed at least 40 hours, right? And I've got one more for you. New and continuing students will have to pre-test with the new test series to establish a new baseline. Is this statement true or false? Again, I'm seeing a lot of A's and T's. That's good. And thank you guys for participating. I truly appreciate that. Okay, so yes, this statement is true. Both new and continuing students will need to undergo pre-testing using the new test series to set a new baseline whenever you transition to the new test series, that is. Okay. And I think there was a question in the chat box about this. Here we go. So just a quick recap, all right? Octave has postponed the sunset date for CASAS Life and Work to June 30th, 2024. However, if you want at your agencies to transition over to the CASA STEPS assessment for ESL, you can certainly do so beginning in the summer of 2024. And we do understand, that your summer term may start in April, May, or June. So whenever that may be, whenever your summer term starts, you can actually start using the CASA STEPS assessment if you want to. All right. Also, it's important to note that the expiration date for CASA's math goals remains unchanged at June 30th, 2024. Therefore, it's crucial for all students to complete post-testing with math goals by June 30th. So now I'm going to briefly go over the test content before turning it over to Carla for some test reports. So the STEPS assessment is designed for ESL learners, and it is aligned with English language proficiency standards, CASAS competencies, and task areas, right? And the task areas are the graphic and written prompts that appear on the test, all right? And the content categories for reading steps are vocabulary, details, main idea, inference, point of view, and supporting evidence. Keep these categories in mind. They are utilized in the new reports as well. And if you want to go ahead and scan this QR code, you will be directed to the Reading Steps information page on the CASAS website. This is where you will find the blueprints, the sample test items, the sample test reports, along with additional resources specifically for the Reading Steps assessment. On this slide here, you're looking at the content categories for listening steps, and these categories are vocabulary, details, main idea, summary, and dialogue. Okay, and again, keep these categories in mind because they are utilized in the new reports that Carla will be showing you a little later today. And if you want to go ahead and scan this QR code, web pages are live for the STEP series, providing access to the test blueprints and sample test items, again, sample test reports, and several additional resources. So this specific QR code will take you to the listening steps information page that is available on the CASAS website. The math domains has 4 focus areas. The first one being number sense and operations, geometry and measurement, data analysis, statistics, and probability, and last but not least, algebraic thinking. It's important to ensure that your instructors are informed and that they plan their lessons in line with the mathematics domains covered by the CASAS Math Goals 2. And if you want to go ahead and scan this QR code, you will be directed to the Math Goals 2 information page on the CASAS website. Again, this is where you're going to find all of those resources like the blueprints, the test items, the sample test reports. So any of my math teachers or coordinators on the webinar today, be sure to check this page out. And now I am actually going to turn it over to Carla, who will be going over some new test reports with you. Carla, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Show. I appreciate it. Also, I'd like to thank Ms. June Roll for letting CASAS come to this training and just give you a bit of a sneak peek on the reports. Like Daisy said, I work for CASAS. I am the National Program and Technology Specialist. However, prior to joining CASAS, which was just 4 months ago, I worked for the Los Angeles Unified School District Division of Adult and Career Education, where I was able to manage the WIOA Title II grant, and we served a little bit over 65,000 students. I am a teacher at heart, so I'm very excited to be talking to adult teachers and adult school leaders as well. By the way, Dr. Shaw, I did see someone asking if we could see those QR codes once again. And just a little thing here. I know that if you do a side-by-side view of your screen, you'll be able to see more of the screen. So perhaps we can. Hey, folks, my apologies. I muted myself inadvertently. So anyways, yeah, someone was asking about looking at those QR codes once again. We can show those in a second. However, I do want to, I'm excited to see so much participation. When Dr. Shaw was talking about change, I did see folks talking about improvement, and this is exciting, and that training will be needed, said someone. However, I do want to give a shout out to Janiyah Jones, because she was very honest. She said, when you talk about change, I think about diapers. So once again, Ms. Jones, thank you for keeping it real there. I appreciate it. I can tell you're a mom. So anyways, let's go ahead and show you a little bit of the reports. If we can go to the next slide, we can show you some of that. So yeah, so remember, Dr. Shaw did talk about the changes, right? And how we want to make sure that we are informing instruction with these new reports. So we do have, as you can see in front of you, we don't have that 3-digit competency report, which there were like 152 different bullets that you had to look at in order to see which competency your students were deficient in. I'm sorry. We have a much broader view of the reports. So once again, this has to do with the changes in the adult education landscape. We want to make sure that we are preparing our students for those 21st century careers. So you will see in the next slide some of these examples of those reports. So let's take a look at this. And if you're like me, once again, because I adore instruction, you will be very excited to look at this. I know you can, there's a lot to look at right now. However, I want you to focus your attention on those bar graphs, on the bar graph. So what you're looking at is called the Student Content Standard Report. And in this particular one, we can see that this is for a single student. So my student over here is thriving in many areas. The one area where I see he might be needing a little bit of help, it's in the area of inference. So once again, another thing to look at, it's not just the bar graphs over here, but as you can see, the content areas are related or correlated to the English language proficiency standards. And we can see here that this particular test focuses on ELP standard 8 and 1. So once again, there's a lot of information that you can draw from these reports now, because they do align with the ELPS standards. And if we look at the next report, once again, we're looking at reading right now some of but now let's take a look at I know someone said math, yes, woohoo! Someone was very excited to see algebra there. I had a math teacher out there. So math teachers, this is for you. Once again, we look at the content areas, and I do see that my student over here is doing very well. However, this particular student might need a little bit of support with data analysis and probability. I can see and the statistics. So once again, we see the letter N here, which, remember, folks, the N only means the number of items on this particular test that have to do with that content area. So once again, if I see 10 questions that have to do with number sense and operations and with algebraic thinking. So once again, you can take a look at some of more detailed reports and be able to draw conclusions about your student or your entire class, because as you know, this can be run for an entire class. And for those administrators in the audience, I want to remind you that when I had to do PD for my agencies, I looked at the entire, like, a specific skill level, for example, and I was able to, we were able to help administrators allocate funding based on those areas where students were struggling. So if we look at the next slide, we will see, again, the richness of these reports. If you can see right here, we still have some of those good old that we all liked, competency areas that have to do with basic communication, consumer economics, community resources, health, and employment. So you can see here some of those, 5 of those good old competency areas that we really like. And once again, I think my student over here needs help with some health content. So once again, this has to do with the actual topic of health. So perhaps if you were presenting how to fill out forms at the doctor's office or things of that sort, you can tell that your students, this particular student is once again struggling with that area. Yeah, I'm also looking at the chat. Yes, I do understand that. Yeah, it's very important to place the placement of the student. Yeah, very good. Yeah, and that happens at the beginning, and that's why CASAS offers those very comprehensive appraisal and locators that are very advantageous for good placement. Let's see, what do we see on the next slide, Dr. Shaw? Very good. Okay, this is a very popular report, the task area performance, because once again, perhaps our students are comprehending the subject. However, they're not very familiar with how to read, for example, forms or emails or signs. In this particular example, we see that students might be struggling a bit with the pink area, right? Texts, emails, articles, and narratives. So I, as a teacher, or I, as an administrator, can dedicate some funding to teachers maybe getting together, if this was for a whole class, and perhaps finding resources, curriculum resources that would address that particular type of question. Once again, the task, remember folks, is how the task performance report tells us information on how this question was presented. Not about the content, but the presentation or the way the question was presented. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is one that when I worked with my reading program and my high school teachers, this is one that they really liked. And once again, those math teachers, they really appreciate this one. There's a lot of information again here. I want you to remember that the individual skills profile helps us to see if our students are ready to take that GED test or HiSET, whichever we are using. You can render the report whether we are using one or the other, HiSET or GED. So once again, this is a favorite one for my high school teachers that I work with, because it tells us about that readiness, right? Very good. You're trying to grow your high school. Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. And finally, I'm just going to touch upon very quickly here, because I know time is of the essence. Just remember, once again, all of the information that I'm going to show you right now, you can access on the CASAS website. Let me just give you, once again, a sneak peek of how those, the actual content of the test. So if we go to this level A, for those students, I'm sorry, those teachers in the audience that teach very low level students, 43% of my tests for level A are pictures. So once again, I know you will appreciate those teachers teaching that level, that still we have quite a big chunk of that test has to do with those with pictures, recognizing pictures. And once again, there we go. Our EL, English Language Proficiency Standards, are highlighted. And right here, you can tell, it's okay. We can go to this slide. I think this is what we want to see as those in the audience. This is how a test item will look like. Once again, we go with the pictures and recognizing numbers, in this case, the date, number formatting, and we're showing you lower level item here. Beautiful. Now we jumped to level C now, which is NRS levels 3 and 4. Now we're looking at this, as you can see on the pie chart, the blueprint here shows us that most of this test has to do with recognizing details and drawing details. A little bit of that on that main idea on inference and vocabulary. Once again, you know, when you get to those higher levels, it's obviously less pictures and more reading. And finally, right here, there you have it, a question item. Okay, so it's, again, drawing that, what is this sign about? Once again, the student's gonna have to find the main idea here, identifying the main topic. We can go to the next slide. Listening, someone was talking about listening. The level A is almost 50% with vocabulary pictures. Students do get a picture prompt on that lower level listening test, and a little bit of dialogue there. Maybe finishing the dialogue. What would the next speaker say, right? And recognizing some details. Once again, there you have it, ELP standards. In this case, it's it shows us what it is. Picture prompts. Remember, those lower levels are the only ones that do get an actual prompt. The lower level, I should say. And yes, those of you teaching the higher levels, NRS levels 4 and 5, a lot of rigor here, folks. Yes, a lot of rigor. We need to be able to, students will be asked to finish those dialogues and identify details. And but we can help students because reports will be, again, aligned to the ELPS standards. NRS level 5 right there, you need to, students will need to know what option it is to finish that dialogue. And on the next slide, you will see, I think this is Dr. Shaw now. But once again, folks, I know I went a little quick, and I'm really happy to see some very positive comments here. Great stuff. I will share it. Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you. Those of you interacting here. You may go back and look and revisit those blueprints on the CASAS website. And I'm excited. We're here to make sure that we provide all the training that's needed. Like I think Jody was saying, we need training. So we're here for you. Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
All right, thank you. I agree with some of the comments in the chat box there. This certainly is some good stuff, right? And the new reports are so visually appealing, and data is so much easier to interpret and all of that. So yeah, be sure to share some of these sample test items and test reports with your teams. And Carla went ahead and mentioned the word rigor, right? So we are getting closer to the end of the presentation. However, before we conclude today's session, let's talk about the 3 R's. We're going to talk about the rigor, some recommendations, and some reminders. So one insight that CASAS has gathered is that students may receive lower scores on the STEPS series. And of course, with that being said, the question arises, right? Why might this happen? So we'd like to remind everyone that the educational and workforce environment has evolved due to factors like innovation and globalization. So the skills required in the workforce have shifted, and this has led to updates in the descriptors for the NRS levels to mirror these changes, ensuring they align with CCR standards as well as English language proficiency standards. Therefore, the STEPS assessments are more challenging. This increase in rigor doesn't mean student abilities have decreased. Rather, it reflects their alignment with the updated standards of the NRS levels. Here are some recommendations. You want to provide your stakeholders with ample information on what to anticipate. You want to seek volunteers to test the assessment in a pilot phase if possible, and you want to encourage teachers to present level appropriate sample questions to their students. Develop specialized professional development sessions for different groups such as administrators, coordinators, and teachers. And teachers might require extra training on the English language proficiency standards and the CCR standards to cope with the heightened difficulty level. So just know that your staff may need extra training and all of that, and CASAS is available to assist you with whatever it is that you need. Also, students need to be pre and post tested using the same assessment series. So if a student was pre-tested with life and work, you want to go ahead and post test them with life and work before transitioning over to the STEPS assessment. All right. Additionally, local agencies, if you are going to be transitioning over to the new ESOL series, or if you are using CASAS goals for ABE and ASC, and you are going to be transitioning over to CASAS goals too, you might have to, revise your matrices, your forms, maybe your technical assistant papers, some of your local assessment policies, and maybe you're going to need some new data fields in your student information systems, like Focus, for example. All right, so just a few other things you want to keep in mind as you transition to the new assessment series there. And now I'm going to share some essential resources with you. And please, please, please be sure to share this information with your staff as well. Starting with the blueprint sample test item and additional resources that can be found at CASAS.org. Again, CASAS encourages you to direct your teachers to explore these materials, enabling them to familiarize themselves with the resources and effectively plan and conduct their lessons with this knowledge in mind. And as I had mentioned earlier, no new training is necessary for the latest test series. All your present certifications remain in effect, allowing you to proctor the new tests immediately. Additionally, a supplemental module offering information about the new test series is now accessible on CASAS.org. This module serves as a great resource to familiarize yourself with what sets these test series apart, including their essential details and mechanics. So all the nuts and bolts there. All right, so make sure you check that out. And CASAS is dedicated to providing you with support and resources you need to succeed. So please do not hesitate to get in touch if you require any assistance whatsoever. The CASAS team is here to help in any way that they can. And folks, I know adapting to change can be challenging at times, but we can handle it together, right? I just want to say thank you for dedicating an hour of your Wednesday afternoon to join us today. If you do have any questions, again, specific to your agency regarding the transition timeline, I encourage you to seek advice from our wonderful team at FDOE. And should you have particular questions about CASAS, please feel free to connect with Carla after the webinar. She's ready to offer personalized assistance. Again, our wonderful CASAS team is also available to support you in any way, shape, or form. And with that being said, I am going to now turn it over to June.
Daisy, thank you so much. Carla, thank you so much. That was just a wealth of information. Your feedback is so important to all of us. So if you could please take a minute to complete our survey, it's now displayed on your screen. It should only take you 60 seconds to complete it. While you do that, I want to let you know that we here at IPDAY will bring you the latest and the greatest information on CASAS as it presents itself. So stay tuned for more webinars that will be forthcoming on this topic of CASAS. So with that, again, thank you so much, Carla and Daisy, for a great webinar. We're getting a lot of great feedback here. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us.